Hello, my name is Clint Johnson. Welcome to Courage to Encourage. This is a show that I created that will help young people that's going through situations in their life that need to be addressed. Many times on the show you're going to see a mother and a daughter, or even a mother and a son, just talking about daily life, what's going on with them, and how do we overcome it. I created this show because I think and I believe that it's going to be very helpful, because the things that we talk about on this show, you and me both go through. So I don't have all the answers, they don't have all the answers, but I promise you, if we all collectively join in and talk about the solution, we can all resolve these issues. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're going to enjoy it. Hello, today my special guest is Vickie Nowlin. She's the principal of an alternative school, and we want to continue to talk a little bit about young people, and that's our primary focus. And I felt like this is a great person to bring some insight. She is not only a dear friend, but she is a great mentor to me. She is someone that I can go to and get great advice. Someone has great insight on young people. So let's get right into it. I have a series of questions that people have asked me to ask her, and I just wanted to ask her the question, and let's see what we come up with. Let's get started. Good morning, Ms. Nowlin.
Good morning, Clint. It's good to see you again.
Thank you for joining. Would you tell us a little bit about who you are and how did you become into the position that you come to now?
I moved here in 1986. I began teaching at Arlington High School, English and reading. I taught at Arlington for 8 years. And when I was at Arlington, there was probably about 80-some thousand students, if not more, in the Indianapolis public school system. While I was at Arlington, I did note that there were several students there that were struggling, if you will, even though they had access to the latest in technology. But there was still a body of students that seemed to struggle academically, as if somewhere in maybe middle school or maybe even the lower grades, they didn't get all of the basics that they needed. And I noted then that that population of students were going to struggle, even as they began to get their high school diploma or tried to achieve their high school diploma. And so that's the population that I have come to address here at Day Adult High School some 20 years later.
Okay. In our profession, we deal with what people label young people at risk. When you hear that word at risk, tell me, what are your immediate thoughts about that label?
At risk stands for those students who are not performing academically on the grade levels that they should be performing on. At risk is the student who has behavioral problems that interferes with their academic success. At risk is the student who doesn't attend school regularly like their peers. At risk is the student who doesn't understand the importance of education and therefore cannot matriculate, cannot move from one grade level to the next grade level like their peers. Not because you're a special needs student, but because you don't have the academic foundation.
What I understand about it is something that's at risk is getting ready to become extinct or getting ready to be dissolved, or however you want to say it, but I want to know what attributes to that
title.
Okay.
Sometimes a student lives in a home where not necessarily there's a single parent, because that's over 50–60% of our society today, but they live in a home where education is not valued. And when education is not valued, there's no one to say, go to school when you don't want to go. There's no one that's pushing you to have that 95% attendance that's required by the school. There's no one that's making sure that you are fed at home and you're prepared mentally to go into the classroom. There's no one at home that's checking the homework, that's following up on the parent-teacher conferences. They come in to sit down with the instructor and say, what can I do to help my child? That's one factor. The other factor is, once the student gets behind academically and there's no provisions in that school system to bring them up to par, i.e. after-school tutoring, i.e. support with state test preparation, i.e. differentiated teaching and instruction in the classroom while the student is there. It doesn't do good to have a classroom where you have students who are average students and then you have 10% that are totally ignored because they can't do the work, don't understand, and nobody teaches them. The flip side of that is to have the 10% that is an academically honor student who's having to do average work because the teacher's not pushing them to excel. So you can have an at-risk student on both sides of the spectrum.
Okay.
The honor student who doesn't get pushed to excel because the teacher teaches on a medium and never differentiates the instruction, or the student who is slow performing and the teacher never takes the time to bring them up to where the rest of the class is.
Okay. The parents inside the home are not pushing the kids and understanding the value of education. If there was a way that you could sit down and talk to a parent and convince them this is what you should be expressing to your child about the importance of education, how would that conversation go?
That person who is the guardian, who looks after you, who feeds you, who clothes you, who makes sure that your well-being is taken care of when you're at home, also has a responsibility to make sure that you register for school on time, that you have your shots when you're supposed to, that you are participating in your academic success. See, it's not enough for the student to go to the classroom, but when he gets to the classroom, he or she has to contribute to their learning. You have to get involved. You have to be engaged. When you don't understand, teach the student to ask questions. Sometimes students who don't know will be the ones who fall asleep in your classroom, who is disruptive in your classroom, and all of that is to keep you from realizing that they don't know what they need to know. And so we have to teach students how to ask for help. And then we have to monitor. It's important that we as parents and guardians monitor our student success. Do you call the school to see how your student is doing? When the student brings home their homework, are you checking their homework? Are you making sure it's done? When they come the next day, are you making sure in their book bag they didn't leave their homework in the book bag, that they actually turned it in? The parent has a lot of power that they may or may not exercise, and if they don't exercise it, then the student feels comfortable just kind of getting by, and you never want that.
Talk to me a little bit about how the lack of education determines that child's future.
First of all, if a student is not engaged in their education and takes advantage that they are progressing from grade level to grade level and have the skill level that they need to go on either to get a trade or to go to a four-year college, they are dooming their life to a certain level of income, and right now that income can be the difference between a $25,000, $30,000 job and a $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 job. As money dries up and as school systems have shortages for hiring teachers, for hiring administrators, for buying books, for curriculum, then those programs become second nature. It becomes a survival thing. And so students have to take advantage of the opportunities that they have in school right now. Because tomorrow, that certificate program may not even exist.
Talk to me a little bit about the importance that the alternative school has played in the lives of the young people that you see and that you serve every day as a principal.
The perception of society is that students and alternative students are quote-unquote bad kids. That kid that fights all the time, that kid that doesn't get along, that student that is expelled. The students that I serve here, many of them have never been expelled. Many of them needed a different academic environment. They didn't work well in a large high school, or they got lost in the shuffle. Nobody knew their name. They weren't the athletic student. They weren't the cheerleader student. They weren't the drama and the music student. They were just students that wanted to go to school, finish it, and move on with their life. And so when they had a chance to get out of that environment, they did. They dropped out at 16, 17, 18, and now they're saying, okay, I need this skill in order to move on with my life. So they're coming back. And I don't need to know your story. I don't need to know your history. I just need to know that you want to learn. And I need to create an environment where you can learn and finish and move on with your life. And that's the alternative population that I deal with.
What are some of the challenges that our young people face today that kind of hinders them from being successful or just moving on in life? Just some of the one or two of the great challenges that they face.
I call those barriers. Those barriers are the student that leaves home and doesn't have a place to lay their head. Those barriers are the student who really doesn't have the academic skill level that they need to be able to go out and get even an entry-level job. They have children, they've been incarcerated, they have bad attendance problems, they don't believe in themselves, they may have gotten into the drug scene, and they don't know how to get back to just being a student. Okay. Because everything in their life says, I'm not just a student. I'm this, and I've got a lot of baggage now. Those are the kind of barriers that prevent students from coming back into the classroom. But if they know there are places like Youth Build, they know there are places like Day Adult, they know there are places like Courage to Encourage, who look beyond all of those barriers and say, hey, you can make it. All you have to do is make up your mind that you want to make it, I can succeed, and there's somebody out here that's going to hold your hand while you're getting there. That's the student that will make it in spite of, and has to make it. Because if they don't get at least a foundation of education, there's going to be no room for them. They become an invisible society. If you're not in a position now where you can pay taxes, where you can get a job and keep a job, where you can be dependent upon, there's so many people that are waiting to take your place that you can't afford to just fumble through life. And that's what happens. You fumble through life constantly looking for something that you'll never be able to obtain without at least a high school and I would even say some type of a trade. Let's use a hospital, for example. In a hospital, people think, oh, you go to the hospital because you're sick. But in a hospital, there's every type of job you can think of. There are engineers, there's sanitation engineers, there are real engineers that work on the structure. There are chefs there. There are lawyers there. There are doctors there. There are teachers there. And so when you think about your future, you need to think, I need a job that's going to be around. You know, don't go get a job that's going to end tomorrow. Go get a job that you can take that trade. If this business closed down, I've got a skill that I can carry somewhere else.
We worked together for about 5 years now. And I watch you work with young people, and it's just amazing. And you know, for me, I hear young people say, Mr. Johnson, you did this for me. You say you did so much. You say, Ma, thank you so much. And I always try to not take the credit for that, because I don't see what is it that I'm doing so special. But what I would like for you to do is tell me, what is it that you see me doing that helps these young people get to a better place?
What I see you doing is believing in them, one. A lot of times students come here and they've never had anybody to really believe in them. You believe in them. You make them believe that they can achieve. You build their self-esteem. Many times they come and they need to be built up. They realize that they've got some baggage. But can I be successful even with this baggage? That's what you make them believe. Courage to encourage. That's you. What is the courage? The courage to say, I don't care what you've been through. So what? Your parents died. So what? You're homeless. So what? You know, you've got kids. So what? You've got a record. So what? Who cares? You can make it in spite of that. You can be successful in spite of that if you want to. If you take the necessary steps, believe in yourself. Don't keep making the same mistakes you used to make. You know, acknowledge you've made some mistakes and then fix that, correct that, and show respect. You've got to be respectful. I don't care what your status is. You can be the richest person in the world, but if you don't respect people, then you're just a jerk. You know, you've got to know how to respect people. You've got to know how to work with people. You've got to know how to be bigger than what people expect you to be. You know, they don't expect you to be articulate, so be articulate. They don't expect you to be respectful, so be respectful. They don't expect you to know what your future is going to be, so know what your future is going to be. They don't expect you to be able to articulate what you're going to be able to do. But be able to articulate where you're going, what your future holds, and be able to articulate where you've come from and where you're going. And then don't let anybody interfere with that.
Not only are you an educator to the young people, but you have to play their mothers so many times. and I see you do it.
Sure.
And I see when you getting on one of the students very professionally, it's just they can accept it because they know that you love and you care about them. I think that's so important. As you were explaining what I do, I always think of what you were all you were explaining is this is the type of teacher that's needed to help make this child be successful. So I really thank you for that. And what I would ask you to do is my last question is, if there is a mother out there that has a child who is struggling with school, thinking about quitting school, and that mother is thinking about letting them quit school, will you look in the camera and tell them, give them a message about preventing that now?
There's a saying in education that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And nothing can take the place of a mother's love, a mother's support, a mother's direction, guidance. No one can influence your child better than you can. No matter how difficult the situation is at home with your child, know that it'll be worse if you're not in their life. So no matter what the situation is, this is where your faith comes in. You've got to be able to believe, to trust, and for me, it's trust in God. I pray for my students. I pray for me. I look to God for strength and guidance. And if you don't have the direction, look for people who are like-minded, who are compassionate like you are, who are willing to give direction like you are, or who are willing to direct you to resources that can support you. But by no means ever give up on your child, because if you give up on them, who will care for them? Who will be there for them? There's a song called "What About the Children?" You know, if it were not for someone in our lives, we would be lost. We would be lost. I certainly would. I came from a family of 12. And I tell you, I say today, how did my mom do it? Back in the 60s and the 70s, how did you do it? And if I could be even half the mother that she is, then I've done a good job. So as I have to be a parent to students, you have to be a father to students. We're saying to the parents, you be the first parent. Let me be the what do you call it? The
co-parent.
Co-parent, okay. Let me be the co-parent to help guide and direct your children. But when you feel like you can't make it with them, then bring them to someone like me or Mr. Johnson, and we'll help you, and you'll be successful.
What I would tell the audience is this: try to bring people that's going to give you some directions of life that's going to help you and your child, because Courage to Encourage is all about the young people and getting them in a place where they can be successful. I concentrate on not fixing the individual mistakes, but trying to make sure that they realize that they are more important than they realize themselves. We love them, we care for them, we don't know what else to do but love and care for them. So I want to bring someone on the show that knows this population so very well, and hopefully she can provide you with those tips that's going to help you and your child be successful. If you have any questions or comments, please email me at couragetoencourage@gmail.com or check out my website at couragetoencourage.org. Thank you so much.